I'm Madison Clarke, 29, standing in my parents' Phoenix kitchen, clutching my sister's wedding invitation like it's made of gold. The elegant ivory cardstock feels smooth between my fingers as I read tomorrow's date for the 100th time. My heart's racing with excitement, dress picked, shoes polished, speech rehearsed to perfection. Mom, I can barely sleep. Tomorrow's finally here, Ashley's big day, I say, my voice bubbling with joy as I wave the invitation. My mother, Patricia Clarke, 54, freezes mid-sip of her morning coffee. The ceramic mug trembles in her hands before she sets it down with a sharp clink. Her eyes dart everywhere, except to meet mine. Madison, she whispers, her voice barely audible. Honey, the wedding. It was 3 weeks ago. The world tilts. My stomach drops like I'm falling from a cliff. The invitation slips from my numb fingers, floating down to smack against the granite countertop. I snatch it back up, staring at the date that's been burned into my memory. What do you mean 3 weeks ago? My voice cracks like breaking glass. This says tomorrow, June 15th. I've been planning for months. Mom's face crumbles, guilt written across every line. We sent you the wrong date, sweetie. It already happened. Ashley's on her honeymoon in Hawaii. My pulse thunders in my ears. The kitchen spins around me as the truth crashes down. My family, Mom, Dad, my baby sister Ashley, they deliberately lied to keep me away. They planned this. They wanted me gone. I think about the sacrifices I've made for this family. The sleepless nights working overtime to pay Ashley's college tuition when she dropped out twice. The $25,000 I gave Mom and Dad to save their house from foreclosure. The countless times I've been their lifeline, their solution, their bank account with legs. My jaw clenches as anger surges through my veins like fire. I won't cry. I won't beg. I won't give them the satisfaction. Something cold and hard crystallizes in my chest. They think they can use me like an ATM and then erase me when it's convenient? They're about to learn that Madison Clarke isn't someone you throw away. Have you ever felt completely betrayed by the people who should love you most? Drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you handled it. Later that night, I sat in my Scottsdale apartment staring at that cursed invitation. Every elegant swirl of calligraphy mocked me, each letter a reminder of how little I meant to them. How could they orchestrate something so cruel? Mom, Dad, Ashley, they all knew. They all agreed. They all lied. My mind spiraled back through the years of being their safety net. When Ashley was 19, she convinced me to co-sign for her first car. A bright red Mustang she absolutely had to have. 6 months later, she stopped making payments and disappeared to find herself in California. I covered every missed payment, watched my credit score plummet, but never said a word. That's what big sisters do, right? Then there was Dad's business. 3 years ago, his contracting company hit rough waters. A major client stiffed him for $40,000, leaving him unable to pay his workers. I liquidated my retirement account to keep his doors open and his employees fed. He promised to pay me back as soon as things turned around. I'm still waiting. Mom's medical bills were next. When she needed surgery 2 years back, their insurance barely covered half. Another $15,000 from my savings account, another promise to repay that evaporated like morning mist. But I did it anyway, because family comes first, right? Wrong. Apparently, family comes first only when they need something. I started noticing the patterns after that, the way they'd suddenly remember I existed when bills were due. How my phone would ring at midnight with Ashley crying about her latest crisis. The way Mom would get that desperate look in her eyes before asking for just a small loan. But when it came to celebrations, graduations, promotions, birthdays, suddenly I was too busy with work, or probably wouldn't be interested anyway. They'd post photos on social media of family dinners I was never invited to. Holiday gatherings where my absence was explained away with lies. Last Christmas was a perfect example. I'd driven 4 hours through a snowstorm to surprise them, arms full of expensive gifts I'd spent weeks picking out. The house was dark and empty. A neighbor mentioned they'd gone to Ashley's in-laws for the holidays. No invitation, no mention. Just forgotten. My phone buzzed, jolting me back to the present. It was my cousin Rebecca Martinez, 34, a paralegal who'd always been straight with me. "Madison, honey, are you okay?" Her voice carried that careful tone people use when they're about to deliver bad news. I told her everything. The invitation, Mom's confession, the sick feeling in my stomach that wouldn't go away. Rebecca sighed deeply. "I was hoping you wouldn't find out like this. They planned it, Maddie. Ashley specifically said she didn't want you there because you'd steal her thunder with your success and confidence. Your mom backed her up, said you were too intimidating anyway." Each word hit like a physical blow. My baby sister, the one I'd raised money for, tutored through high school, helped through every crisis. She thought I'd ruin her perfect day. And Mom, who'd taken my money with grateful tears, agreed that I was somehow the problem. I paced my apartment like a caged animal, city lights twinkling mockingly outside my windows. Every memory felt poisoned now. Every sacrifice seemed stupid. Every loving gesture had been wasted on people who saw me as an inconvenience they could buy off with guilt and manipulation. Rebecca's voice softened. "You don't deserve this treatment, Madison. What are you going to do?" I stopped pacing, catching my reflection in the dark window. The woman staring back looked tired, hurt, but not broken. Not anymore. They thought they could erase me from their lives while keeping my wallet? They were about to learn that Madison Clarke wasn't just their personal ATM. I had power they'd forgotten about. The next morning, I drove to my parents' suburban Phoenix home, my hands gripping the steering wheel like a lifeline. Rebecca's revelation had stripped away any illusions I'd been clinging to. This wasn't about a miscommunication or a simple mistake. This was a calculated betrayal by people who claimed to love me. I parked in their familiar driveway, looking at the house I'd helped save from foreclosure. The irony wasn't lost on me. I knocked on the door. Sharp, demanding knocks that announced I wasn't here for small talk. Patricia Clarke opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise. "Madison, what brings you by so early?" I pushed past her into the living room where my father, Robert Clarke, 56, sat reading the paper over coffee. My sister Ashley wasn't there, probably still on that Hawaiian honeymoon I'd helped fund through years of bailouts. "Why did you lie to keep me from Ashley's wedding?" I asked, my voice cutting through the morning quiet like a blade. The newspaper rustled as Dad set it down, avoiding my eyes. Mom's face went pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Madison, sweetheart, let's not make this into something bigger than—" "No." I cut her off, my tone ice cold. "You sent me a fake date. You deliberately excluded me. I want to know why." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. Ashley felt overwhelmed. She wanted a small, intimate ceremony. "With 200 guests," I said flatly. "I saw the photos on Facebook. Small and intimate." Mom wrung her hands, tears starting to form. "You have to understand, honey. You're so successful, so confident." Ashley was worried about being overshadowed on her special day. There it was. The truth laid bare. My success, my independence, my refusal to play the victim. These weren't things to be proud of in their eyes. They were threats to be managed, problems to be solved by cutting me out entirely. "I've given you everything," I said, my voice low and controlled. "Money, time, love, support. And you repay me by erasing me from the most important day in my sister's life. Dad finally looked up, his expression uncomfortable. It's not that simple, Madison. You make us feel inadequate sometimes, like we're not good enough. His admission was a knife twisting in my chest. They didn't exclude me because I'd done something wrong. They excluded me because I'd done everything right, and it made them uncomfortable. I thought about all the times I'd rushed to their rescue. Ashley's tuition payments when she kept changing majors. Dad's business loans when his clients didn't pay. Mom's medical bills when insurance fell short. The house payments, car repairs, emergency funds, all of it flowing in one direction. From me to them, always. I'm done being your fallback plan, I said, looking each of them in the eye. I'm done pretending this is a normal family relationship. Mom stepped forward, her voice pleading. Madison, we're family. Don't let hurt feelings destroy what we have. What we have? What exactly did we have? A relationship where I gave and they took? Where my love was measured by my bank account? Where my presence was only welcome when they needed something? I headed for the door, my decision crystallizing with each step. This wasn't about hurt feelings. This was about self-respect. About recognizing when you're being used and having the strength to walk away. This isn't over, I said, pausing at the threshold. Dad's voice followed me. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. They'd built their comfortable lives on my generosity, assuming it would flow forever like a river they could dam and redirect at will. They were about to learn that rivers can change course, and when they do, the landscape never looks the same. The next morning, I sat in my downtown Phoenix office, surrounded by financial documents that told a story my family never expected me to remember. Yesterday's confrontation had shown me exactly where I stood in their priorities. Nowhere. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd forgotten that generous doesn't mean stupid. I called Rebecca first. Her voice was warm but concerned when she picked up. Madison, how did it go with your parents? About as expected, I replied, spreading papers across my desk. Rebecca, remember when Mom and Dad were about to lose the house 5 years ago? The foreclosure notice, the panic, the tearful phone calls? Of course, you saved them from bankruptcy. I did more than that. I bought the house. Outright. $180,000 from my savings. It's in my name, Rebecca. Legally, I own it. Silence stretched across the line before Rebecca whispered, They never told anyone that, did they? They let everyone believe they just got a loan modification. They've been living in my house for 5 years, rent-free, while I paid property taxes and maintenance costs. They even rented out the guest house for extra income, money that went straight into their pockets. Rebecca's voice turned sharp with anger. Madison, that's your property. They've been profiting off your generosity while treating you like garbage. Her words validated what I'd been feeling. This wasn't just about the wedding anymore. This was about years of exploitation disguised as family love. I called my lawyer next. Sarah Chen, 38, had handled my business contracts for years. She knew my situation well enough to understand the implications immediately. Let me see those documents, she said when she arrived an hour later. Her eyes scanned the paperwork with professional precision. This is ironclad. You own that property completely. They're essentially tenants at will. You could evict them with proper notice. The word evict sent a chill through me, but also a surge of power. For the first time in years, I held cards they didn't know I had. What are my options? I asked. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her expression serious. You could demand market-rate rent going forward. You could require them to move out. You could sell the property from under them. Legally, they have no standing to object. My phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. Heard you came by the house. Mom's upset. Can we talk when I get back from Hawaii? I stared at the message, bile rising in my throat. She was still on her honeymoon, the one I'd been deliberately excluded from. And now she wanted to talk? After 3 weeks of letting me believe her wedding was still in the future? I showed the text to Sarah. "Too little, too late," she said. "Don't let them guilt you into backing down. You have every right to protect your interests." That afternoon, I drove past my house, the one my family had been living in while pretending it was theirs. I saw Dad washing his truck in the driveway, Mom tending her garden, both of them comfortable in their delusion that their actions had no consequences. My phone rang. Rebecca again. "Madison, I heard something you should know. Ashley's been telling people the house belongs to her and your parents. She used it as collateral for that big wedding. Told vendors they owned valuable real estate." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Not only had they excluded me, they'd been lying about my property, using it to secure services for an event I wasn't allowed to attend. "There's more," Rebecca continued. "Your dad's been bragging at the bar about how smart he was to save the house during the foreclosure crisis. He's taking credit for your money, your sacrifice." Each revelation was another nail in the coffin of our relationship. They hadn't just used me, they'd erased me from the narrative entirely, rewriting history to make themselves the heroes of their own story. I turned the car around, heading back to my apartment. I had a decision to make, and it was becoming clearer by the hour. They'd treated me like a bank, a resource to be exploited when convenient and hidden when inconvenient. They'd profited from my property while excluding me from their celebrations. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. "You have every right to protect your interests." For too long, I'd confused enabling with loving, generosity with stupidity. My family had counted on my guilt, my desire to be needed, my fear of being alone. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was someone who recognized her worth and demanded it be respected. The paperwork on my desk represented more than property rights. It represented my ability to stop being a victim of my own kindness. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of reclaiming not just my house, but my life. A week later, I sat across from David Park, my financial advisor, signing documents that would sever every remaining financial tie to my family. Their betrayal had opened my eyes to how thoroughly they'd infiltrated my life, and I was systematically closing every door they'd used to exploit me. "This closes the joint savings account you opened with your parents in 2019, David said, sliding another form across his mahogany desk. "The emergency fund you contributed to monthly, they'll no longer have access." I signed with steady hands. That account was supposed to be for genuine emergencies, but my parents had treated it like their personal slush fund. Mom's emergency spa weekend, Dad's urgent golf club membership, Ashley's crisis shopping sprees. Real emergencies, apparently, were things like rent and groceries, things normal adults paid for themselves. Sarah Chen, my lawyer, spoke from across the room where she was organizing legal documents. "The credit cards you co-signed for are now their sole responsibility. If they default, it won't affect your credit score anymore." Relief washed over me. Those cards had been another tool of manipulation. "It's just temporary," Ashley would promise, "just until I get back on my feet." 2 years and $12,000 in debt later, she was still getting back on her feet, while I made minimum payments to protect my credit. My phone buzzed with yet another message from Ashley. "Madison, please call me. Mom says you're cutting us off financially. We need to talk about this family meeting." I showed the text to Sarah, who shook her head. "Family meeting," she said with disdain. "Let me guess. They want to negotiate how much they can keep taking from you." David handed me another document. "This removes your parents as beneficiaries on your life insurance and retirement accounts. Your assets will go to the charities you specified instead." The irony was perfect. They'd excluded me from Ashley's new family, so I was excluding them from my legacy. They'd thought they could have it both ways, my money without my presence. Life doesn't work that way. Sarah pulled out a thick folder. These are the property management documents for the Phoenix house. Starting next month, they'll pay market rate rent, $2,800 monthly, or face eviction proceedings. Can they afford that? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Based on their financial records? Not without making serious lifestyle changes, David replied. Your father's construction business barely breaks even, and your mother works part-time at the boutique. They've been living above their means because they had you as a safety net. My phone rang. Mom's contact photo filled the screen. A happy family picture from last Christmas that I wasn't in because I hadn't been invited. I let it go to voicemail. Sarah noticed my hesitation. Madison, you don't owe them a conversation. They made their choice when they excluded you from the wedding. This is you making yours. The voicemail notification popped up. I played it on speaker. Madison, honey, we need to talk. Ashley told me about some papers you're filing. Sweetheart, don't do anything rash. We're family. We can work this out. Call me back, okay? I love you. The manipulation was subtle but unmistakable. The pet names, the We're family guilt trip, the assumption that protecting my own interests was somehow rash. Classic emotional manipulation designed to make me feel guilty for having boundaries. I deleted the voicemail without a second thought. David stacked the signed papers efficiently. You're completely financially independent from them now, Madison. No shared accounts, no joint liabilities, no co-signed obligations. They can't touch your assets or damage your credit anymore. How long before the property management notices take effect? I asked Sarah. 30 days, standard legal notification period. After that, they pay rent or face eviction proceedings. The law is very clear on landlord rights. Another text from Ashley. Madison, Dad's talking about hiring a lawyer. Don't let this go that far. We're sisters. I laughed out loud, a sound with no humor in it. Now I was their sister? When they needed something? When their comfortable arrangement was threatened? Where was that sisterly love when they were planning their perfect wedding without me? Sarah noticed my expression. What is it? I showed her the text. They're threatening legal action. With what grounds? Sarah's voice was sharp with professional disdain. You own the property. You've given proper legal notice. They have no case whatsoever. It's an empty threat designed to scare you into backing down. I thought about the years I'd spent being scared. Scared of disappointing them, scared of being alone, scared of seeming selfish. That fear had cost me my self-respect and over $100,000 in money I'd never see again. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was free. David secured the documents in his briefcase. Your financial profile is completely clean now, Madison. You're in full control of your assets and your future. As I left the office, my phone continued buzzing with increasingly desperate messages from my family. Each one confirmed that I'd made the right choice. They weren't concerned about repairing our relationship or acknowledging their betrayal. They were panicking about losing their financial lifeline. For the first time in years, that wasn't my problem to solve. 3 weeks later, Rebecca called with updates that confirmed every suspicion I'd had about my family's true priorities. Madison, you need to hear this, she said, her voice tight with anger. Ashley and Jake are having serious problems. That Hawaii honeymoon? It maxed out 3 credit cards. They're drowning in wedding debt. I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports, trying to focus on my actual job instead of my family's self-created drama. But Rebecca's news pulled me back into their mess, whether I wanted to be involved or not. How much debt? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Over $80,000. The wedding cost twice what they planned. Ashley convinced Jake they could afford it because she thought you'd bail them out afterward. She never told him about the exclusion plan. My stomach churned. Ashley had counted on my generosity to cover her irresponsible spending, even while actively excluding me from benefiting from that spending. The audacity was breathtaking. "There's more," Rebecca continued. "Jake found out about the wedding invitation scheme. He's furious. He thought you just couldn't make it. Not that you were deliberately excluded. They're barely speaking." A part of me felt sorry for Jake. He seemed like a decent guy who'd been manipulated by Ashley just like I had been, but mostly, I felt vindicated. The truth has a way of surfacing, and lies always have consequences. My phone rang. Ashley's number. I let it go to voicemail as I had been for weeks. The voicemail notification appeared, and curiosity got the better of me. "Madison, it's me. I know you're angry, but please, I'm desperate. Jake might leave me. The bills are crushing us. I made a mistake with the wedding thing, okay?" I was stressed and scared, and I don't know what I thought. "Please call me back. I need my sister." Her sister. Now I was her sister, when she needed money, when her lies were unraveling her marriage and her finances were in shambles. But where was that sisterly bond when she was planning her perfect day without me? I deleted the voicemail and called Rebecca back. "How are Mom and Dad handling the rent situation?" I asked. Rebecca's laugh was bitter. "Not well. They're scrambling to find ways to come up with $2,800 a month. Your dad's been picking up extra contracting jobs, working weekends. Your mom's looking for full-time work for the first time in years." "Good," I said, and meant it. They should have been working that hard all along instead of relying on my bank account. "There's something else," Rebecca said, her tone shifting. "They're bad-mouthing you around town. Telling people you're heartless, that you've abandoned your family for money." The words stung, but they didn't surprise me. When people can't control you anymore, they try to destroy your reputation instead. It's the last desperate move of people who refuse to take responsibility for their own actions. "What are people saying?" I asked. Mixed reactions. Some people believe them, but others are asking uncomfortable questions, like why a successful woman would suddenly turn on her family for no reason. People aren't stupid, Madison. They're starting to piece together that there's more to this story. That afternoon, I ran into Mrs. Henderson, our old neighbor, at the grocery store. She'd known our family for 15 years and had always been kind to me. "Madison, dear," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I heard there's some tension in your family. I hope everything works out." I could see the curiosity in her eyes, the questions she wanted to ask but was too polite to voice. Word was spreading, and people were taking sides without knowing the full story. "Sometimes you have to protect yourself from people who take advantage of your kindness," I said simply. "Even family." Her expression shifted, understanding dawning. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. That must be so difficult." It was difficult, but not in the way she meant. The hard part wasn't cutting them off. It was accepting that it had been necessary for so long. The hard part was realizing how much of my life I'd wasted trying to earn love from people who only valued what I could provide. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was Jake. "Madison?" His voice was strained, exhausted. "It's Jake, Ashley's husband. I think we need to talk." I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Jake. I found out about the wedding, about the invitation. I had no idea, Madison. I thought you couldn't make it because of work. If I'd known what Ashley planned." His voice cracked with emotion. "It's not your fault," I said, and meant it. "You were lied to just like I was." "I don't know how to fix this," he said. She's not the person I thought I married. The debt, the lies, the way she talks about you. I don't recognize her anymore." I felt a stab of sympathy for him, but also clarity. This was what happened when people built relationships on deception. Eventually, the foundation crumbled, and everyone got hurt. "Jake, I can't fix your marriage," I said gently. "That's between you and Ashley. But I can tell you this. The sister you're discovering now is the same one who's been using me for years. You're just seeing it for the first time." The call ended shortly after, but it confirmed what I already knew. Truth has a way of revealing itself, and lies always exact a price. My family had built their comfortable lives on my generosity and their deception. Now both were gone, and they were facing the real cost of their choices. For the first time in years, those consequences weren't mine to manage. 2 months later, the eviction notice was served. I wasn't there to see it, but Rebecca described the scene with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. "Your parents were shocked," she told me over coffee at our favorite downtown cafe. "Genuinely shocked, like they never believed you'd actually follow through." I stirred my latte, processing the information. Part of me had wondered if I'd actually go through with it when push came to shove. My family had counted on my softness, my reluctance to be seen as the bad guy. They'd bet their future on my inability to enforce boundaries. They'd bet wrong. "What happens now?" I asked. "They have 30 days to vacate or pay the back rent, 4 months at $2,800 plus late fees. That's almost $12,000 they don't have." The numbers were stark, but they represented more than money. They represented years of taking me for granted, of assuming my generosity was unlimited and unconditional. They represented the wedding I was excluded from while living in the house I bought them. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. "This is Jake. Ashley's in the hospital. Panic attack. She's asking for you. Please." Rebecca saw my expression change. "What is it?" I showed her the text. Her face hardened. "Madison, don't you dare feel guilty about this. Ashley created this situation with her lies and manipulation. You didn't put her in the hospital, her choices did." I knew Rebecca was right, but seeing those words still hit me like a punch to the gut. Despite everything, Ashley was still my sister. The thought of her scared and alone in a hospital bed triggered every protective instinct I'd spent years developing. "I should go," I said, already reaching for my purse. Rebecca grabbed my wrist. "Why? So she can manipulate you face to face? So she can use your compassion against you one more time? Madison, this is exactly what she's counting on." I hesitated, torn between the sister I used to be and the woman I'd fought to become. The old Madison would have rushed to the hospital, checkbook in hand, ready to solve everyone's problems. The new Madison recognized emotional manipulation even when it came wrapped in medical emergencies. Another text from Jake. "She's saying she wants to die, that she's ruined everything. Please, Madison, she needs her family." The guilt hit like a tsunami. What if Ashley really hurt herself? What if this was more than manipulation? What if I was wrong about her motives? But then I remembered the wedding photos on Facebook. Ashley laughing, radiant, surrounded by family and friends while I sat at home believing her big day was still weeks away. I remembered her deliberate cruelty, her calculated exclusion, her assumption that I'd clean up her messes no matter how she treated me. "No," I said, putting my phone away. "I'm not going." Rebecca squeezed my hand. "That's the right choice. Hard, but right." "Is it?" I asked, doubt creeping in. "What if she really is in crisis?" "Then Jake needs to handle it. Her parents need to handle it. You're not responsible for managing Ashley's emotional state, especially after how she's treated you. Don't let a hospital setting make you forget what she's done." That night, I lay awake thinking about Ashley in that hospital bed. Was she really in crisis, or was this another manipulation? Did it even matter? Either way, rushing to her rescue would only reset the pattern we'd been trapped in for years. The next morning brought news that answered my questions. Rebecca called, her voice carefully neutral. Ashley was discharged after 6 hours. No medical intervention needed. Jake says she spent most of the time on her phone, posting about her family crisis on social media. The relief I felt was followed immediately by anger. She'd weaponized my compassion, used the threat of self-harm to try to manipulate me back into her orbit. It was the lowest manipulation yet, and it confirmed that I'd made the right choice by staying away. "There's more," Rebecca continued. "The social media posts? She's painting herself as the victim of a heartless sister who abandoned her family for money. She's getting a lot of sympathy from people who don't know the real story." I'd expected this. When people can't control you directly, they try to control your reputation instead. Ashley was rewriting history, casting herself as the wronged party and me as the villain. Some people would believe her, but that said more about them than about me. "Let her tell her story," I said. "People who matter will see through it. People who don't, well, I don't need their approval anyway." The hardest part wasn't Ashley's lies or my parents' desperation. The hardest part was accepting that the family I'd loved and sacrificed for had never really existed. I'd been in love with an illusion, a fantasy of people who cared about me as much as I cared about them. But illusions don't pay rent. Fantasies don't respect boundaries. And love that only flows in one direction isn't really love at all. I'd spent years trying to earn something that was never available for purchase. Now, finally, I was free to invest my energy in relationships that valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of my La Jolla beach house, the one I'd bought with the money I'd been hemorrhaging to my family for years. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly before me, its rhythmic waves washing away the last traces of guilt and regret. My life had transformed completely. Without the constant drain of family crises and financial emergencies, I'd been able to pursue opportunities I'd only dreamed about. A promotion at work had led to a corner office and a salary that reflected my actual worth. My social circle had expanded to include people who celebrated my successes instead of resenting them. Rebecca joined me on the deck, 2 glasses of wine in her hands. "How does it feel?" she asked, settling into the chair beside me. "Peaceful," I said, accepting the glass. For the first time in years, I'm not waiting for the next crisis call. I'm not checking my bank balance wondering what emergency I'll need to fund next. My phone had been blissfully quiet for weeks. No desperate texts from Ashley, no guilt-laden voicemails from Mom, no urgent calls from Dad about business emergencies that somehow always required my immediate financial intervention. "Any regrets?" Rebecca asked. I considered the question seriously. Did I regret losing my family, or did I regret finally seeing them clearly? "I regret how long it took me to recognize what was happening," I said finally. "I regret enabling their behavior for so many years. But cutting them off? Standing up for myself? No regrets there." Rebecca nodded, understanding. She'd watched me struggle for years, caught between my desire to help and my growing resentment at being used. She'd been the one person who'd consistently told me the truth, even when I wasn't ready to hear it. "What happened with the house?" she asked. "They moved out last month. Couldn't make the payments." I felt a flicker of something, not quite satisfaction, but definitely closure. "I sold it to a lovely young couple with twin babies. They'll actually appreciate what they have." My parents had moved into a small apartment across town, their lifestyle dramatically downsized without my financial support. Ashley and Jake were in counseling, trying to rebuild their marriage on a foundation of honesty instead of deception. The debt was crushing them, but it was debt they'd chosen to take on. "Do you think they've learned anything?" Rebecca asked. I watched a seagull dive into the waves, emerging with a fish clenched in its beak. "I think they've learned that actions have consequences. Whether they've learned to take responsibility for those actions, that's not my problem anymore." The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, each color more vibrant than the last. I'd missed so many sunsets over the years, too busy solving other people's problems to enjoy my own life. Now I had the luxury of simply being present, of appreciating beauty without calculating its cost. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. Property sale finalized. Proceeds deposited to your account. Congratulations on your fresh start. A fresh start. That's exactly what this was. Not an ending, but a beginning. The beginning of a life where my value wasn't measured by my willingness to sacrifice, where my relationships were built on mutual respect instead of financial dependency. Rebecca raised her glass. To Madison Clarke, a woman who finally put herself first. I clinked my glass against hers, the sound crystal clear in the ocean air. To recognizing your worth and demanding that others recognize it too. As night fell over the Pacific, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. It had forced me to examine relationships I'd accepted without question, to set boundaries I'd been afraid to enforce. My family had taught me an invaluable lesson, though not the one they'd intended. They'd taught me that love without respect is manipulation, that generosity without boundaries is exploitation, that being needed isn't the same as being valued. I'd spent years trying to buy their love with my loyalty and my bank account. Now I understood that real love isn't for sale. It's freely given and freely received, or it's not love at all. To anyone listening who's trapped in a similar cycle, hear this. You are worth more than what you can provide to others. Your value isn't measured by your willingness to sacrifice your own well-being for people who don't appreciate it. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Protecting your resources isn't cruel. Demanding respect isn't unreasonable. Sometimes the people who claim they love you are actually the ones holding you back from discovering your true worth. Sometimes the family that raises you isn't the family you're meant to keep. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it completely. Now, surrounded by people who value me for who I am rather than what I can give them, I finally understand what healthy relationships look like. The waves continued their eternal rhythm below, washing the beach clean with each cycle. Like those waves, I'd found my natural rhythm too, one that didn't revolve around other people's emergencies or manipulations. My story isn't unique, but my ending can be. I chose myself, and it changed everything. If you're struggling with similar family dynamics, know that you're not alone. Share your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes just telling your truth is the first step toward reclaiming your power. Thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales of transformation and self-discovery. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure the lesson is one of respect.